Cool.
So I put the recording on now. I am like dead serious, gutted that we didn't record that hour and 40 minutes of just general chatting.
What I can't even comprehend is how we just talked for an hour and 40 minutes just about prep, but that was so fun. And just
honestly,
I love getting into like the nitty gritty of it all. I'm like,
yeah, I think we definitely need to maybe. The unfortunate thing is there'll be so many things that we spoke about that we'll have forgotten about because it was just so honest. But
and just organic. That's what I loved about it. It just rolled off the tongue beautifully.
They say though, if you don't lie, you don't need to remember. So I've jotted some notes down. Maybe we can talk about it again and I'll record it, because I do think talking about dieting, the struggles with dieting, extremity dieting, the weird and the wonderful that comes along with it, that's normal and acceptable to us. I do think we definitely. I think, do you know what? I actually might start doing some sort of podcasty thing. And
oh my God, I'd be so game for that. Please, please, please.
I might try that. I might try and introduce that if I have time.
I think the rewards that you'd get from that anyway, even if no one listened to it, it would just be, I think it would just be quite a rewarding thing just to get your thoughts out there and get your experience out there. I think someone somewhere will take something from it. So
I honestly think we could have settled so many people's first time prep nerves. I think we maybe would have put a couple people off prepping and wasting their time.
We could have helped so many people.
We could have brought some clarity for general population, people that don't bodybuild or are just interested. We would have taken pressure off people to worry about how they look. So many things.
Damn it.
But again, the reason I wanted to talk to you was about vegan, and I don't want to just say vegan dieting, because there's probably going to be a few things that I want to ask that's just a general stuff, I suppose. So
far away.
So for people, again, because I think my clients will probably watch this, I don't know if you want to quickly just do like a short introduction about yourself and potentially how we spoke and how we got talking, and then I'll go through the questions. There was a couple from Instagram, and then there was a couple in a WhatsApp group. I'll go through them, and I'm sure that we'll end up talking again for potential a long time. Justine has ADHD. I'm undiagnosed ADHD, so this could be all over the place. But
yeah, like little disclosure ahead of the game. I ramble, and like you've seen it. I mean, we've just been talking for an hour and 40 minutes. I will hone in on one subject, and then it will just like trail off into this ADHD, just like lost in the forest, just completely.
I'll give you credit though. You always come back round. Always.
Thank you, because that rarely happens. But yeah, so I guess just to like introduce myself a little bit, I'm Justine, aka Seaney Bikini, my alter ego. No, I'm joking. I'm currently doing my master's in sports psychology, so I'm really sort of interested in the whole mental side of performance and sort of mental skills training, enhancing performance, so all of that kind of stuff. But obviously what brought myself and Tom together was I was looking for athletes to participate in my research project around just like lived experiences of bodybuilding. I won't go too much into it because my research aim has just changed so many times that like I can't even solidly say that this new research aim is what it's going to be about anymore, because I think it will probably change again. The joys of ADHD. But yeah, my background's like mostly in mental health. I pretty much, after graduating from my undergrad in psychology, went into a very clinical background. I worked as a support worker and assistant psychologist for a few years, moved up to Bristol, transferred to a neuropsych unit up there where I was working more sort of with like neuro rehabilitation and brain injury. And then yeah, I slowly sort of transitioned out of that. I kind of wanted to tie together psychology, but I wanted to tie it in with my love for sport and my interest in sport and my interest in performance. And I didn't really know that much about sports psychology when I decided to do it. I just thought this sounds super interesting. And like, again, with the hyper focus, I was like, this is what I want to do. And I just got really, really stuck into this degree, and I've loved it, because the nice thing about it is I've just completely made it my own, and I've been able to really hone in on areas that I'm interested in, and kind of guess make more sense of my own experiences as well as, and you know, we've talked a little bit about the mental side of prep and, you know, post competition and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really rewarding in the sense that it's really helped me make sense of some of my experiences as an athlete, but also what I can do to help other people.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was just a full-on ramble, but
no, it's
that's just a
you're
little bit about
clarifying
me.
you're just clarifying well, I think you're brilliant at talking. I think you've been brilliant. That the first time we spoke was similar. We spoke for a long time.
Yeah, we did.
And I think it's fascinating how much you know and how much experience you have within sport and then the psychology side and the psychological side of it. That it's you can talk and you can give so much. So don't stress if you feel like you are going on for longer than you need to. But I get like, so vegan and veggie and that these are things that I guess I don't know if game changers, would that have caused it to maybe increase in numbers? Would that have caused it to be, I don't want to call it a trend, because I think it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, I definitely would say it's played a role, and I think it definitely got more people talking about it and more people wanting to try it.
Yeah.
My only qualm really that I have with game changers is just how one-sided it is. And I feel like as a vegan, I have the right to say this, and I'm allowed to say this. But it was very one-sided from the get-go. Obviously, yes, they back up what they're saying empirically. There is scientific evidence that utilizing a plant-based diet does have all of these amazing health benefits and amazing benefits for athletes. What I didn't like about it was so obviously they interviewed like the most elite level athletes who are just so happen to be on plant-based diets. Not necessarily all of these athletes were completely vegan. A lot of them just ate heavily plant-based. But I think interviewing a group of people like that anyway, you're basically interviewing the superhumans of the world. Elite level athletes, not just in terms of like what their diet and nutrition is like, but they've got some of the best mindsets and the most fascinating mindsets in the world. And I think genuinely, if these kind of people told you not to eat meat, you would just do it because of who they are and what they've achieved and what they've done. And I think that was my major qualm with it, because a lot of the athletes talked about how switching to a plant-based diet like really enhanced their performance, and you know, they started performing better, recovering better. And as a vegan athlete and myself, these are things that I've experienced as well. But when you switch to a largely plant-based diet, you're going to be naturally taking on a lot more carbohydrates, which in turn is going to enhance your performance, because your body's just going to be burning through those carbs like an absolute machine.
Yeah.
So yes, these athletes have seen major increases in their performance because they've switched their diet. Naturally, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think just in terms of not really comparing it to much else, I think it's so important to have a kind of a control and a comparison when you're making assumptions about something like that. And I think that's why it annoyed me, because it was very one-sided. But
Yeah,
at the
so
end of the day.
something that I found myself having to say to a lot of people that don't come from a science background like we do, you can find research to support anything, but it doesn't make it good research.
No.
And I guess, like you're saying as well, the people that they found were just, it was going to be biased. It was going to support what they wanted people to say.
Absolutely.
But then, like you also say, having a plant-based diet, and this is something that I talk to clients about a lot. Like, I believe I have a plant-based diet. Like, if you imagine a pyramid, the base of that pyramid is going to be plants. It's going to be fruits and vegetables. And then the next stage is going to be carbohydrates, so more carbohydrates. Then after that, I add meat. So
yeah,
I still say, like, everybody should be trying to have some sort of, like, the base of their diet should be plants. But
yeah,
and what I butted in there, sorry, to say was the issue with that is, like you said, it's very one-sided. So even though they did see these results, there's a reason not every elite athlete is vegan.
exactly.
And again, I just want to clear that up, because some of my clients they'll have heard what you said there and be like, oh, so we should all be plant-based. They will have just potentially assumed that.
Yeah.
So with that show, did you see an increase in vegan clients, or do the majority of people come to you are already vegan because you are vegan?
A lot of my clients initially, I think, the most of my clients aren't necessarily vegan themselves, but they're very open-minded, and if I put vegan things on their meal plan, they're not mad about it. Like, they just kind of crack on and get on with it. But a lot of the time, because I know what works for me nutritionally, I know what to put where, and what meals I kind of would eat throughout the day.
Yeah.
And it's quite an unnatural thing for me to be like, right, so this is what I would have for dinner, whereas someone who eats meat might have chicken instead of. So, like, I'm very okay with just making little swaps out here and there. So I'm like, okay, my client's not necessarily going to want to have a sausage bagel for breakfast, so a vegan sausage bagel. So I'm just like, okay, well, I'll just swap it out for normal sausages, that kind of thing. I'm very good at, like, kind of flitting between it. But I think the fact that I am vegan draws a lot of people in, because they want to learn how to optimize a vegan diet. I've had a lot of people come to me, and this has been really, really common. A lot of people have come to me and they've said, I went on a vegan diet for about a month and I felt shit. Like, I felt horrific. And I'm just like, okay, well, what kind of stuff were you eating? And a lot of the time it comes down to just filling yourself with very kind of processed foods. So a lot of fake meats and that kind of thing. And people, and you'll probably find it as well, when you get lifestyle clients come to you, they genuinely don't know what a macronutrient is, or even a micronutrient. It's completely alien to them. So they've probably never tracked food before with those things in mind. So making direct swaps doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work. So if you all of a sudden start swapping chicken out for, vegan chicken or that kind of stuff, it's not necessarily going to have the same effect. You really, really need to kind of look into what you're eating. And I think a lot of people just assume, I'm just going to start eating loads of vegetables and all of a sudden I'm going to start calling myself a vegan and I'm going to feel 10 million times better. It doesn't work like that. Any normal person would feel shit if they're just eating plates of vegetables 3 or 4 times a day. It's a miserable life. I think a lot of people, they come to me and they're just like, I don't know how to utilize a vegan diet to make it optimal and really help me on the way to my own personal goals. So a lot of what I try and do is more educational rather than just giving them a meal plan and being like, this is what you need to eat, and just being like, there you go. It's I always try and take kind of, I've got a bit of a layered approach, so I'll kind of start off not with a sort of tracking approach, just sort of getting people used to eating a certain amount of meals a day. If they want to start making swaps from meat to like meat substitutes, just making sure that they're packing out their dishes with a bit more protein, a bit more sort of vegetables, eating lots of fruit, that kind of thing, just making healthier choices, and then just layering things on top of that, like setting a protein goal, for example, and then building carbs and fats and stuff on top of that as well, just so it's not like overly overwhelming. And I think people learn a lot more about food that way. That's generally the consensus and the feedback that I've got back from my clients. So
so you kind of touched on two things. So one, I'll ask this was one of my questions, and then I'll come back, and there was another question about protein. So you mentioned you find a lot of people just go straight into like the processed foods. Do you find it's hard to avoid eating processed foods and being vegan? Do you find that difficult, or is it?
I do, and I don't, because, and it comes down to marketing, I think, at the end of the day, like how these companies and obviously supermarkets and everything else market these kinds of products. Because, you know, you can go to a supermarket and you can pick up a vegan burger or something like that almost anywhere. And if you don't know what you're looking for in terms of the ingredients and everything else in these products, just because it's been marketed as a vegan burger, it's going to be super tasty and it's got all of this nutritious goodness in it, doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. A lot of the kind of meat alternatives that I've picked up on the shelves, yes, they're a really great source of protein, because a lot of these products are soya based, and that they use, I mean, in terms of amino acid profiles, a lot of them are actually very, very good. But if you're not looking at the other ingredients, sometimes it can be a little bit unhealthy. And it's very easy to fall down that wormhole of thinking that you're making good choices, but in fact, you're actually just filling yourself with even more processed crap than you probably would have not being on a vegan diet. So I think really kind of knowing what you're looking for, and it's hard. Like, I mean, I'm still going into supermarkets, and I've been vegan for over 3 years now. I'm still going into supermarkets and I'm reading the labels. I'm making sure that everything's, you know, one, in terms of ingredients, it's got, you know, there's nothing in there that's not vegan, but also it's in terms of macronutrients, you know, is this going to be worth eating for getting to where I want to be? And you find as well, a lot of these kind of fake meats and a lot of the meat alternatives, they're packed with fat and carbs. It might have 20 grams of protein per serving, which for a vegan item is bloody amazing. You need to pay attention to the rest of the label, and it's, a lot of people don't want to do that, and I understand that. A lot of lifestyle clients don't want to spend hours in the supermarket reading labels and being like, oh well, you know, that one's pretty high in fat, or, you know, like, a lot of people don't know what they're looking for a lot of the time. So I think it's almost easier a lot of the time to provide a food plan and a meal plan. It just takes away that middleman, and it takes away the hours of standing in the bloody supermarket and just reading labels, because but it's something I guess I don't detest so much, because I've just gotten used to doing over the years. And because I'm not one of the, obviously I went vegan for the animals, I did it for the animals, but I was lactose intolerant anyway. So I was vegetarian obviously before, but being lactose intolerant, all I really ate was eggs.
That was,
for me, it was a really easy transition, because I didn't find it that difficult to cut out eggs. I just had to sort of do a little bit of research and find what was helpful for me and how I could still hit that protein goal, not filling myself with a shit ton of eggs, basically. Because on a bodybuilding diet, you can imagine I was quite heavily reliant on eggs as a source of protein.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it just took a lot of like educating myself. And even though my coach isn't vegan herself, she was really, really helpful in me making that transition, because she put the research in herself and made sure that in terms of my meal plans, I was still hitting all of those macronutrient goals on a vegan diet. And don't get me wrong, at first, like my meal plan was sad. Oh, it was so sad. I was eating like vegetarian sausages like 3 times a day, and like so much vegetarian sausage.
Something that really helped me as a coach was, once it became so popular, like there was a lot of people that would come through saying, oh, I'm vegan, by the way, does that matter? And then when I would say, could you tell me what you eat? Or if I got them to keep a food diary, I could then go look up what they eat. And that was I was able to then kind of compile like, right, okay, this would be like an ideal, because this kind of covers everything. It gives me the protein that they need, and it matches their calories. And one of the big things that people do worry about, and this was one of the questions, and you did start to mention it there, is the amount of protein. And one of the questions was, how do you make sure you're hitting your protein target over the day? And I don't know if they're asking in the sense of tracking. I think they're probably asking more in the sense of like, how do you get enough protein in?
Yeah, I would just say, and to a lot of my clients as well, when we're building up to that, like I was saying before, I kind of like use a bit of a layered approach to people that aren't necessarily used to tracking themselves. Just making sure that you've got some kind of protein source, like you would with any normal non-vegan lifestyle client, you know, just making sure that there's a little bit of meat on your plate, or, you know, packing out meals with stuff like beans and legumes and lentils. I eat so many lentils, but then I can also allow myself to, because I'm on quite a high carbohydrate diet as an athlete, so I can afford to pack myself out with things like beans and legumes and everything else. But it's also really important not to become so heavily reliant on those things, because like I said, obviously they've got a bit of a dual purpose. So they are carbs, but they are also protein as well. So it can be quite tricky to find that balance. And that is the main struggle that I say a lot of my clients would have when we're sort of building up to that protein goal. Trying to actually hit that protein for the first few weeks is really, really difficult for them, because they're still figuring out what they like, what meals they like eating. And I use a lot of things like, so my main ones are like black bean spaghetti, soybean spaghetti. I use obviously a vegan protein powder, which I stir into yogurts. I bake with them. I have a lot of very creative ways of using protein powder, so it's not me just drinking a shake.
So one of the questions was as well, what's the tastiest vegan protein powder?
So I have 2 personal faves. In terms of taste, Awesome vegan supplements.
That's who I normally recommend.
They are like the dons of taste. They've just absolutely nailed it. So yeah, I would say Awesome vegan supplements. That being said though, I did recently try their chocolate orange one. Gross. But I'm not a horrendous sweet tooth. I quite prefer, I'm definitely more of a savory person, and if I'm going for something like a pudding, it will always be something quite bitter, and I'm not overly sweet tooth. So, and this protein for me was very, very sweet, and I can't cope with it.
So what was the other company? Awesome and
Raw Sport. So in terms of amino acid profile, Raw Sport have completely wiped the floor with vegan protein. They have absolutely smashed it. And as well, because they are a completely vegan company, I think it aligns more sort of with my personal values, because you find as well a lot of big protein companies and supplement companies, they will do some kind of vegan protein. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are a vegan company though. And there is always the risks of cross-contamination and things like that. It's not something that I'm personally too worried about myself. I know there are a lot of vegans who will literally only purchase from vegan companies.
The purists.
Yeah, the purists. I'm personally, I'm not that worried about it. I do have to be quite careful sometimes, obviously having a lactose allergy. Lactose intolerance, sorry. But yeah, Raw Sport have just absolutely nailed it. The taste is great. Amino acid profile is fantastic. It's fairly reasonably priced. There's always discount codes flying about on Instagram and everything else anyway. And in terms of just getting like creative with using it, I've made some really awesome like protein cookies. I've done brownies. I love stirring it into yogurt and just like piling it up with fruit and granola and everything else. And I think once you kind of get used to getting a bit creative with protein, it just makes that approach to dieting so much easier.
So another question, sorry, that kind of ties in with this is what are your go-to for like the highest source of protein but keeping things vegan?
So, and I hate to admit it, but I use a lot of meat alternatives in my diet. I do. And I try and not necessarily use so much of these just because of how heavily processed they are. And I do try and take a bit more of a whole foods approach a lot of the time. I'm not the perfect vegan. I'm not. Like, I eat what I enjoy. And in terms of if I want a really, really high protein meal, going back to earlier what I said about like using things like black bean spaghetti, and you can buy soybean pasta and chickpea pasta and all of that kind of stuff, because as well as getting that carb hit, you're also getting a really good amount of protein in there as well. But also Aldi do one, it's by the Foodie Market, so they do a black bean spaghetti and they do like an edamame fettuccine, and they all sound really, really fancy, but these things are so low carb and they are packed with protein. I ate tons of this stuff on prep, to the point that I actually kind of got a little bit sick of it. But in terms of like hitting a protein goal, if you're eating that, with stuff like meat alternatives, so ones that I always go to are just Linda McCartney sausages, because I'm just obsessed, deeply obsessed, and I think I always will be. I use, so Naked Glory do some nice like quarter pound burgers. They do these little roast tender strips, which is basically fake chicken. So I think, for 125 grams of that, you're looking at about 25 grams of protein, which is
good,
very good. So
do you know what I'm quite liking? Everything that you're saying is what I have on vegan meal plans.
That's good then.
I'm like buzzing with myself over here, thinking like, oh, these are all things that I put in people's plans. But that's brilliant. So you're saying like the highest protein sources are the black bean spaghetti stuff. That's a fantastic option. And then meat alternatives. So Naked Glory and Linda McCartney sausages. They were like one of the best things that I could find that would be calorie friendly as well. So like they're not through the roof. And that's, again, these questions are from people. I don't think any of these people are actually vegan. I think they just play about with things. But the next question is, what advice would you give someone who's thinking of changing to a vegan diet?
Sorry, Tom. I'm getting offered a coffee and I'm like, yes, coffee.
Yeah, so the question was, what advice would you give someone that was thinking of changing to a vegan diet? And would you recommend that they go slow and steady or just dive straight in?
I would say go slow and steady, just because and from what I've seen from my own clients and just people that I've spoken to that, you know, are trying to make that transition to going vegan, they go all in and go completely cold turkey.
Yeah.
And like anything else, if you're giving up smoking, if you're giving up drinking, you always have that kind of little rebound or that relapse. It's going to happen, and it's a completely normal part of the process. So I think as soon as you start accepting and normalizing the fact that that is actually part of the process and inevitably it is going to happen, the more accepting you are of that and the more you understanding you are of that, it's going to make that transition so much easier. Because I think a lot of people find they go completely cold turkey and then they have a little bit of a slip up and they're like, oh fuck this, I'm not going to do it. Like it's like that with everything, addiction and, you know, taking up any kind of new lifestyle. It's going to happen. And I think as soon as you start normalizing that the fact that a relapse is inevitably going to happen, the easier the process will be and the more likely you are to kind of persevere and stick with it. So yeah, I would definitely say slow and steady wins the race, and just doing your research. Like I said earlier, a lot of people go all in and they're just eating completely the wrong foods from the get-go, and they end up going back to where they started because they haven't enjoyed the process, or do you know how many people have said to me, I went vegan for a month and I got so ill? And I'm like, okay, what were you eating? They're like, well, I ate nothing but fruit and veg. And I'm like, dude, like, come on. If you were still, you know, the fact that you've just put vegan on that is disappointing, because all you've done is eat fruit and veg. It doesn't make you a vegan. Like,
it's mad. It is
so
mad.
Frustrating. But it's like, I think educating yourself on how to utilize a vegan diet properly and making sure that you're still hitting all of the kind of the macros, you're getting a good amount of carbs, you're getting a good amount of fats, and you're getting a good amount of protein, but also just really like having a wholesome, very because I think there's a very fine line between plant-based and vegan as well. And I don't think a lot of people really think about this, because I would see a plant-based approach as something that's very whole food, so lots of veg, beans, legumes, all of that good, like really hearty, wholesome food. Whereas I would say a vegan diet, you're probably relying a bit more on that kind of like heavily processed that food to thank you so much. And yeah, I think a lot of I've completely lost my train of thought there. ADHD.
You were talking about
distracted by the coffee.
People kind of getting confused with being plant-based, being vegan.
So I think there is definitely a fine line between vegan and plant-based.
Yeah. And
I think if you take that sort of like more whole foods based approach, you're getting in all of those micronutrients as well. So you're getting all the vitamins and the minerals and things like that. And I think it's really, really important when you're going into a vegan diet to realize and have some knowledge around the fact that there are going to probably be some, you're going to need to supplement essentially. And that
was actually going to be the next question.
Yeah, I thought that would probably come up.
Do you have to supplement like extensively? Do you feel you have to take more supplements than the average person?
Not at all.
And if you could give us examples of the supplements that you do take, that would be fantastic.
So all I take at the moment is I take an iron and folic acid supplement, and that's not, a lot of people ask me, is that because you're vegan? I've always been anemic, so that is why I supplement iron. I supplement a vegan omega, which is essentially the same thing as cod liver oil and all that kind of stuff, but it's taken directly from the marine plant as opposed to from the fish. So it just cuts out the middleman, basically. So they're cruelty free. No little fishies have to die for your fatty omega needs.
For your health.
For your health. And every day I take a vitamin C supplement, and I also supplement, oh my god, what's the other one I take? I take 4 tablets every day. I take vegan omega, vitamin C, iron, folic acid, and come on, Justine, vitamin D3. I tend to, I would say, supplement vitamin D more this time of year though, just because of obviously the lack of sunlight that's out there, and yeah, so I take a sort of vegan vitamin D3 supplement as well. While I was on prep, there were more things that I was supplementing, but that was purely down to depletion. Naturally, when you're that depleted as well, there's going to be things that you're going to be missing in your diet. So you should only really supplement if you can't necessarily access those vitamins and those minerals through your diet. A lot of people, and I have it so much with my clients, I don't know if you've experienced it as well, but they come to you and they're taking like 20 tablets a day because they're sticking all these supplements in their body because they've been told it's good for them. And it's like, do you actually need to, you don't need to supplement all of that. If you've got a balanced diet, you don't need to, all you're doing is making your urine extremely expensive. So you could probably start selling it on the black market or something. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, it would be people that when I would say to them, what was your reasons? Because I always like to know why people turned vegan. And I can completely understand the ethical side. Like I could completely understand. But when it was people that would say, oh, I watched Game Changers, it would be them that supplemented like stupid amounts of things. And you're like, you've listened to too much nonsense, I feel. But that's them.
I get asked as well a lot about B12. And iron naturally as a vegan. Well?
Do you ask?
No, like no one ever asks me about it.
No,
it's always they're like, oh, you know, you must be quite deficient in B12. I've literally never supplemented B12 in my life.
No.
There was one period on prep though, obviously where my food was very low, my calories were very low. Obviously that's the very extreme side of it, but my coach was just like, I think we should start taking a B12 supplement. And I think I was supplementing B9 as well. But that was mostly to maximize absorption of the other minerals that I'm sort of getting from my diet. So it's not necessarily because I'm missing it. It's more to help other processes along, I guess. But yeah, that's probably protein deficiency and B12 deficiency and iron. They're the ones that I get asked about the most. So
and I guess I'll quickly touch on, just because in case clients don't understand, amino acids are just what proteins get broken down to in the body, and because in like a vegan diet you supposedly take in less protein from more complete sources, I guess you would maybe say, like a complete protein source, you maybe don't get the full spectrum of essential and non-essential amino acids. So that's all an amino acid is. However, like we've just spoke about there, if you mix up like these different spaghettis, different beans and pulses, and then have in some of the protein powders that you said have nailed the full table or whatever it's called, and then have some meat alternatives, you're managing to tick all the boxes and get all your essential and non-essential amino acids that you need.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I hope that clarifies things to clients. If not, or anybody that's watched this, they can, I guess, ask questions. And I guess a great way to finish this up would be like the last question that we got was, what would like an example day of eating for you look like? You've mentioned a bunch of the foods, but how would you piece together, say, a breakfast, a pre-workout, a post-workout, and something pre-bed? I don't know, like how would an example day run, or a training day, an example training day?
So probably, obviously, for me, in terms of calories and stuff like that, it does fluctuate quite a lot because, as you know, obviously the past 20 weeks I've been on prep. But even on what is supposed to be a very restricted diet, I still had a lot of really nice stuff in my meal plan. And obviously my coach helps with all my meal plans and stuff like that, because generally when I'm in an off season, I just take a tracking approach just so I have a bit more freedom with food, and you know, I'm eating more stuff that I want to eat. But as soon as I'm on prep, I'm on plan, and it's just non-negotiable. I feel like I just respond a little bit better to a meal plan. But like a normal day of eating for me at the moment, as my calories are sort of creeping back up to more of a maintenance, I tend to make sure that I've got some kind of protein source in every meal. So whether that's breakfast, you know, I'll probably have like Linda McCartney sausage bagel, or like I'll have yogurt with a bit of protein powder mixed into it with some like loads of, I just pack it out with fruit and a little bit of granola and just make it like really hearty and really stodgy. I love a big breakfast.
Yeah.
For me, like breakfast is my favorite meal. So that is when I will have probably the most calorie dense meal and the biggest meal. So yeah, like I used to on prep as well, I would make homemade like Biscoff flapjacks or like baked protein oats, that kind of stuff. Just getting really, really creative with using protein powder in a lot of recipes and things like that as well. So lunch would sort of be like maybe a fake chicken wrap and a little bit of veg, hummus, carrot sticks. Or like if I'm feeling like a bowl of pasta or something like that, I'll have, you know, a nice bowl of the black bean spaghetti with a bit of like homemade sauce. Again, some kind of fake meat, so chopped up sausages or like, but my thing at the moment, and something I'm deeply, deeply obsessed with, is just sweet potato, like just homemade sweet potato wedges and like a vegan burger in a baked oven. Pucker. Obsessed. That is, I've been having that like my proper basic bitch lunch that I've been having every day now, pretty much since competition. And like me and Morgan joke about it all the time. He's like, oh, what's it today, sweet potato? And I'm like, yes, actually. Don't judge me.
And so with these meals, would you then look to utilize more carbohydrates around pre and post training still, like everybody in the bodybuilding industry does?
So I tend to drip in my carbs mostly pre and post workout. So like if when I come back for, because what I'll do generally, and I'm quite good at doing this because like I was saying to you, I like making my breakfast quite calorie dense and quite big, because usually I like training in the morning. So that's why I have a big breakfast, because that just fuels my workout, gives me that kick up the bum and like really, really gets me going for the day. So I'll have my breakfast tends to actually, even though it's the most calorie dense, tends to be my lowest fattiest meal. Yeah. So it's packed out with carbs and protein essentially. So it's just that perfect like pre-workout hit, just gets me going. And then as soon as I finish, I'll have like my post-workout meal, which will either be lunch, depending on how long I'm in the gym, or it will just be like a quick sort of like protein carb hit, essentially. So
and then would you have like the similar meals that you've mentioned, like the pastas, the spaghettis? Would that be like an evening meal? And I guess like a good question to add to this could as well be like, what sort of things would you snack on?
I'm a bit boring, to be honest with you. I love fruit. Yeah. And I eat so much fruit. Like I eat a lot of apples. I dip apples in like peanut butter and almond butter and that sort of thing. I eat a lot of berries, grapes. I will literally graze. And I genuinely think this is a habit that I've learned from my dad, because growing up, my dad, God knows why, but would always keep a packet of wine gums in the fridge.
Okay.
He likes his candies really like hard and just like super chewy. So there's always, and he still does it. I mean, my dad's pushing 70 now, and he's still got his wine gums in the fridge every day without fail. He's just in there, and he'll just take one out when he wants one. It's like his little thing. He's just always done it since a young age. I've noticed myself recently, I do exactly the same thing with grapes. Like I'll just go, every time I open the fridge, I'll just take a couple of grapes out the pot and I'll just eat them. And then I'll just like walk off and go on. And I genuinely think my dad's like instilled that in me since a very, very young age. So, but I went through a phase of like having, so my protein, they do like these carb crushes, so just like low carb protein bars, so it's like obviously a good hit of protein, but in terms of snacks and stuff like that, I'll probably just mostly stick to fruit. Sometimes like I'll have maybe a little bowl of cereal with some like protein powder in it. I'm not hugely exciting in terms of...
it's good just to hear. It's good just to hear.
Yeah, and I love making little protein cookies as well. Like I'll make a batch of them at the beginning of the week, and then they're just like a good little snack to have here and there.
Yeah, I'd said that was going to be the last question, but I've got another one. And I guess this is kind of like a two-parted question. Part one would be your partner, Morgan, who very kindly brought you a cup of coffee. Is he vegan as well? No. So then part two would be, when you guys go out for tea or on dates, do you plan in somewhere that's going to have vegan options?
So as you know, most of our relationship together was on prep.
Yeah.
A good 20 weeks of that. I mean, Morgan's prep overall, I think he prepped for about 14 weeks in total. My prep was 20 weeks. So most of our relationship together, we have been on prep. So we haven't really had the luxury of like going out to eat and doing all that really fun coupley datey stuff that you should be doing in the beginning. We literally just went full throttle, and we were just like, let's just hate each other for that. I'm only joking, but we didn't have that luxury of going out and eating, because we were both dieting pretty hardcore. But post show, obviously we've had a little bit more freedom, and we have been eating out a little bit more and stuff like that. But generally, if we're going out for dinner, we will always check the menu first, just make sure they've got a good few like vegan options, because you find most restaurants nowadays anyway will always have a vegan option on the menu. Usually it's a bit of a cop out, it's just a burger, like a little veggie burger and chips, like come on, it's not that hard. But like everywhere pretty much has vegan options now. But I know the places that I like, and Morgan knows the places that he likes. So generally, like actually going out for dinner really isn't that hard. And I mean, in an ideal world, don't get me wrong, Morgan would be vegan. Like,
why not you not vegan?
You've seen the sheer size of the boy, though. I think trying to sustain, and I'm not saying it can't be done, but I think trying to sustain his physique on a vegan diet just would not be optimal, because he would just be eating buckets of food. And no one wants to do that. Like,
no. So again, I was going to have that as my last question, but this will be something that I imagine clients would be interested in. Do you guys then try and say Morgan wants burger and sweet potato fries? Will he just have a meat version and you would just have a vegan version? Is that how you cook for each other? You just kind of make the same meal?
Pretty much. So we don't actually, and it's so sad really, like it sounds like quite a miserable existence, but I think just because we are so used to it because of prepping, we eat together, we eat our meals together, but we always eat different meals. We just got so used to doing that on prep, and it would be like, you know, oh, you're going to come around tonight, we'll have dinner together, but we're literally cooking completely different meals because we were on different meal plans. And I think just because we're so used to doing that, we don't necessarily eat together. And I think like Morgan's been promising me since we competed that he's going to cook me a nice vegan meal one evening, and it's not happened yet. So I'm still waiting on that one. But he actually coming out of our shows, we were like, you know, this time we're not going to go mad and spend a load of money on post-show treats. So we actually baked something for each other, which was actually really nice. And he nailed it with the vegan, like, but he did have moments where he was just like, I remember, oh, what did he say to me? He was just like, oh, I've made this vegan bake, and you know, it's really good, and it's got Nutella in it. And I was just like, Morgan, Nutella's not vegan, hun. He was like, what? Nutella, like, it's just chocolate spread. And I was like, it's got milk in it, babe. Like,
bless him.
Like, but the effort was there and the intention was there, and it was just so sweet. But I was like, yeah, if I eat that, I'll get probably quite ill because I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
So, because the thing is as well, and I've had this before, where like I've gone around to like a family member's house and they've been like, oh, do you want some of this apple crumble? And rather than being that person that's like, I don't know what's in it, so I'm just not going to eat it, I'll politely say no. Or if it's put in front of me, 9 times out of 10, I've just been like, fuck it, and I've just eaten it.
Just eat it, yeah.
Because I hate being that person that says no and is just that difficult vegan. I hate being that person. So and I said this to Morgan as well, had that little bake that he made me not had milk in it, but it, you know, not necessarily all of the ingredients were vegan, I probably would have just been like, well, fuck it, you've gone through all that effort now to make it, I'll just eat it. But the fact that it did have milk in it, I was just like, no, I actually can't, because I'll get sick. But yeah,
I think it's hilarious. Like, I bet a lot of people would not believe that this is the second time we've ever spoke to one another.
I know.
I think it's hilarious.
I love that though. Like, I feel very at ease just speaking to you, and everything just kind of like comes around very quickly, and it's just, it's like I've known you for so much longer than I actually have. I'm totally devastated we didn't record the first. Oh my god.
I think we
R.I.P.
cleared it up. We put the world to rights. Like, we sorted
we really have.
We really did. But that's being said, I would love to do this again, and I would love to,
oh my god, 100%,
record like a full conversation, and we'll maybe put a few ideas ahead of time, so if we do want to do a bit of research so we can justify our opinions, because a lot of what I've said is just my opinion on it. It's just anecdotal. It's not actually supported by nothing.
No, and same here, really.
But I think people are interested in that. I think people are interested in the science. But I think what someone experiences, like we said, like, it's fantastic to listen to what someone's gone through. Either because it's relatable, either because you can feel some sort of empathy or some sort of emotional attachment to it, like, oh geez, that's how they feel, as opposed to, oh, the data says this. Like, I think there is.
And like you were saying earlier as well, it almost kind of justifies those experiences that you have had, because we've just normalized it so much in this sport, and you can't share that experience with other people and normal people because it's extreme to them. And outside of this subculture, there's just that complete lack of understanding, whereas we've all shared this weird and wonderful experience, and we just get it. Like, you just get it.
I definitely do. I think we should
explaining yourself, like, you just have this mutual understanding without anything being said. And I love that.
I think we do. I think we should do like normal people doing bodybuilding. I'm a little bit more normal than you are. You're still very bodybuilder. You're a bit more bodybuilder than I am. But we should do that. That's what we should talk about next time.
Yes. No,
right, Justine, I've had you on here for 2.5 hours now. You've got work to do.
That's mental. Time flies when you're having fun.
It does. It does. Right. Thank you so much for answering all those questions.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll make sure I send you my dissertation when it's all.
Oh, please do. Please do.
Up.
Right. I'm going to stop recording now. I'll say bye properly.